And that being said, Peter, you're planning on attending the entire meeting, is that correct?
I'm not 100%. I may have to depart at some point, not too far into this.
Okay.
But if I do, then I will hand over the hosting responsibilities to you.
Now,
and then all you need to do at the end is actually, you know what? I will just keep hosting it until the end, regardless, because if I'm recording it, then that's what I'll need to do.
that would be helpful because a crash course in how to host a Zoom meeting is probably not the best use of time right now. So I appreciate that. And apologies to everybody for my lack of technical savvy.
No worries.
I don't mind putting the notes in the as we go along, but I'm not going to take the minutes in the future.
No, this is a one-time thing. Norm is quite happy to do that.
Yeah.
I'm just relying on his attention to detail.
Be careful what you commit to, Madam Chair.
So
is everybody here? Sorry to cut you off, Ruth.
You want me to do that then?
If you wouldn't mind, that would be incredibly helpful.
Okay.
In this rare occasion.
No problem.
So do we have everybody that we're expecting now? Okay, so I guess we will, if everyone's okay, call to order at 7:10 p.m.
Okay.
And as we just did, appoint a recorder. Thank you, Ruth, very much. And can we please put a motion, or now as the chair, do I put the motion forward to adopt the agenda, or do I need somebody else to do that? Can you clarify, please, Peter?
You can just ask for someone to do that, or
okay,
you can do it.
Well, I'll put it forward to that we approve the agenda. Is there any discussion, any amendments to the agenda anybody would like to make?
Other than just to say we are keeping this to an hour, is that correct?
Yes, correct. I believe then when the meetings are, we could ask Carla in the future to maybe limit it to an hour and 15 minutes. That way if we do need a little bit of wiggle room, but there's no expectation that we'll be going past an hour.
Yeah. Well, I would, on the agenda is obviously the follow-up from the council meeting the other night, but it would be really good to, while we have the CAO here, to hear feedback on the reporting piece of it. And then the other thing I could add, if we are going to get to the OCP amendment and associated targets, I do happen to have a report on what other communities in Howe Sound are targeting that I can add to that.
Okay, so we will, under unfinished business, we can discuss more of that, which would be the first on our, it would be item C.
Okay.
So if anybody else has any amendments to the agenda, if not, please all in favor with a yes.
Aye or yes?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, excellent. Thank you all. And we shall adopt the agenda. Next, public questions and comments. So I see that we have Mayor McLaughlin and Councillor Abbott. I think that's the only members of the public, and I would like to invite you to have a few moments to share.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. If I may, with your approval, thank you for giving me a couple of minutes to address your committee. Thank you to you and Councillor Barmeyer for your exceptional leadership in this very important committee. To the members, your engagement and volunteerism is so greatly appreciated. Thank you. To the members, I see some that I'm familiar with over the years. I'm I'm happy to report to the younger members, very few years, by the way, for Greg, Ruth, and John. Members I've known through reputation, such as Clara. Clara, please say hi to Mom and Dad on my behalf. And to those who don't know Clara well, she's made appearances to Metro's Climate Action Committee, and is just a great add to your committee. And to members I know less well, such as my neighbor Rebecca, and to Christina, I look forward to getting to know you better. Well, I'm an alpha male by nature, and the older members would know that. I believe in putting the best people in place and letting them run with things. For this committee and to the leadership, continue to do the good things that you're starting to do. My sense is that the community is thirsting to be climate friendlier if they knew what they could do. I look forward to seeing your recommendations very shortly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Abbott, do you have something you'd like to share?
Yeah, less of a speech. I don't know all of the members, but I do know some of them as well. And thank you all for participating in this committee. And I've been very pleased with what we're seeing come to council so far, and look forward to what are the recommendations that come forward to council. And I know you've got a lot of work to do and many years to catch up on. I do a little bit of background in some of the previous climate action task force committees we had, so I'll be happy to contribute and pass comment as we go along. I know some stuff has come back to council already. There hasn't been anything in the village update. The question would be, I know the mayor suggested that we should get something in a village update soon, but as I'm assuming most know, Earth Day is looming very soon. So I don't know if there's an intention to get something to this week's village update. And I don't have a suggestion, I'm afraid, but just something a little different around Earth Day to draw attention to what you guys are doing. That's all I've got. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. And to your point in regards to Earth Day, that was the intention of the committee, to have our declaration occur at last council, so it could be announced to Earth Day, for Earth Day. So a deadline for something to be submitted would be noon tomorrow, correct, Peter?
Well, usually it's today, but we can squeeze it in for sure.
Okay, maybe we can chat about that a little bit more. If anybody out there is savvy with putting something together for a big pop of announcement of excitement, then please feel free. If not, I'll speak with Peter and we'll see what staff can put together.
Madam Chair, if I may, it's a pretty
Yes.
big deal. It's late Wednesday, late Thursday, what are we talking about? Another week for a significant piece to get it right is just fine with me. And I think that's probably where you want to go.
Can I get a consensus from would we like to make a soft announcement in tomorrow's VU, or do we want to knock this out of the park a week from? Clara, please.
Hi, so I think like Earth Day is actually Thursday. So I'm wondering if we can do a special announcement on Thursday and mail that out. Is that possible?
That's a good question. Peter?
Yeah, we could do that. If you guys want to make a splash, then, want to pull some stuff together, we could do a special BU on Thursday for Earth Day. And yeah, I don't see why not.
I think that's an excellent idea. What does the group think? Are we all on board with that?
I think it works for sure.
Yeah, I'd be agreeable to that.
All right.
How much?
It's not every day a municipality declares a climate emergency, so I think it's worthy.
My question is just how much many words, like how
As much as you want, really.
less is
And
probably,
and I guess whether or not you want to have some visual pieces with it, and you know, you can either provide like a Word doc kind of thing and some photos that you want to incorporate in Carla and let Carla run with it, or you can put together a PDF that looks the way you want it to look, and then she can use that. But it's, yeah, wide open, whatever you want to do.
Madam Chair, if I may, in the the declaration's fairly lengthy. And I don't know whether for Peter, it's going to be a kind of a sole item update, or and then do a second one for Friday with the other stuff. But I think, you know, using starting and then going to a link with the rest of the Word document, pictures are very powerful. I think beyond the declaration, I think identification of the committee members, what your aims are and stuff like that. So I actually don't see it as one person doing it. I see it as a collaborative thing between the committee members between now and midnight Wednesday kind of thing.
That would have been my suggestion as well. We've got 6 days to get something together. John, I see you had something.
Yeah, I was, no, I'm not muted. I was going to suggest a Google Doc that we could collaborate on. Might make sense, and we could, you know, comment back and forth with notes on the Google Doc as well, and that, you know, we could participate together on it. But that seems like it would be a good way to work on it.
Is that you volunteering to initiate the Google Doc, John?
I mentioned leadership earlier on.
Well, I would defer to Ruth on it, who put together the motion. But if you know, if we want to start with me, we can start with me. If Clara, I'm sure, is also more than capable of putting something together. So I'm fine. I'll take the lead, or I'll take, you know, a sidestep and come in after someone's done something, whatever.
Hey, go ahead,
Yeah.
Ruth.
yeah, so we have a Google Drive set up. I could put the actual wording in there in a document. Also, if we just want to kind of copy what other communities might have done, just to give us inspiration. One of the questions I have, I guess, for the CAO is also, will there be a space on the village website about the climate action? Because District of Squamish, for instance, they put a press release on their webpage under the section specific to climate action. Are we expecting too much? It's just, you know, where are we pointing to for them to get more information?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we need to build a webpage that's dedicated to the work of this committee. And I had thought that maybe it was going to go a particular direction, but I think that particular direction using another platform in conjunction with our website might take a little longer before we get there. So we'll get something going with our website, and we'll have a look at what others have been doing. So Ruth, if you're saying that Squamish is a good one to look at, then we'll do that. And any others that you would suggest?
I haven't done my research yet, but wouldn't take very long. So the piece that I'm willing to do is kind of copy and paste stuff into a Google Doc on our Google shared drive. And then if others want to pitch in, and then in the meantime, if you can let us know if there's going to be a place on the website to point to.
Yeah, we'll create a web page that we could build and have a variety of things on it. In terms of the VU piece, what I would suggest is that you concentrate on the overall messaging and so forth, and we'll have a link to the actual declaration, maybe a link to the terms of reference. well, actually, I guess these things should be hosted on that webpage. And so, you know, we can provide links to various things to draw people's attention, but it'll all go to that webpage. So I think Carla can pull that together by Thursday, no problem.
Excellent, thank you. Comforting, glad it's somebody else's. You lost me at links to websites. I'm not that bad, I am getting better. I promise I'll put in some effort. So any other?
Just to clarify, sorry, but in order to, for the Thursday announcement, what's the drop dead deadline for having that written?
Wednesday at noon, is that reasonable, Peter?
Yeah, I think that's probably good.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I wouldn't hesitate to use Carla to help the group along too.
Excellent. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so if we are done with our public participation, let's move towards the approval of the minutes. Would somebody like to put a motion forward to approve the minutes of the March 31st meeting of the Climate Action Committee?
I approve the minutes.
You put,
Motion.
thank you, John. Can I get a second? Thank you, Clara. Any discussion, any changes anybody would like to make? And all in favor with an aye or a yes?
Aye.
Raise a
Aye.
hand. All right, thank you. Passed. And we can move on to the business arising. So as we've all heard, we were successful at Tuesday's council meeting in declaring a climate emergency here in Lions Bay. We broke it into two. That was based upon the recommendation of Mayor McLaughlin. So one is the statement and the declaration, and then the second part of that was the staff report. And maybe at this moment, I will open for discussion, and perhaps Ruth, this would be a good opportunity for you to ask Peter any questions that you have about the staff time and etc.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd like to thank council for supporting and staff, I guess, for supporting the resolution. And I think I heard at the meeting that looking at the current OCP would be the first step, is sort of kind of reporting back on where you believe we've left off.
Yeah, so that's what I took as being the ask and the deliverable to start with, so that we have a baseline to work from. You know, reference the OCP and the targets that were set and the actions that were set out there. What have we accomplished? What have we commenced? What's on the horizon? What have we simply not got around to at all? So that you know exactly where things stand. There might be a few things that as well that might be relevant that you could take into consideration moving forward that weren't on there as well. So that'll sort of be a supplemental piece to the report. But that's more or less the direction I was intending to go with it.
Anyone else? Questions for the CAO?
I have another question, if that's okay.
Of course.
Just on the KRIP report, this is kind of moving on to that, but the KRIP report, that is an annual opportunity, right?
Yeah, it's an annual requirement.
Yeah, and so this is maybe getting ahead of the minutes, but it's just burning question that I have is really about the intention is that the village has the opportunity to recover on carbon taxes.
Yeah, I think the amounts that are available are quite minimal, but I didn't have a chance to sort of ask Pam Rook about that. So I'm not really sure how that works or what sort of amounts we're talking about. I just have a sense though that it's not a significant sum.
Yeah, I think that would also be really helpful is for us to at least, I think, know what's the potential annually of even if it's like a few $1,000s, it's so that it just, you know, it's so that we're not thinking, well, it's a few $100s or tens of thousands of dollars.
Right.
And I think helpful to have a scope.
Yeah, that would help towards the baseline. Sorry, I had a question. I lost my train of thought. Does anybody else have a question about, oh yes, sorry, now I remember. The CAREP report for 2020 was it postponed, Peter, or was it just canceled due to COVID? Do we anticipate something similar for 2021? Is there any, do you have any knowledge on that?
I'm not sure. I'll have to check on that. It's something that Pam's normally filed. And I think it's it's backward looking. So I think you have to file your 2020 by June, maybe. I'm not sure.
Sorry, guys, I know I'm not part of the committee, but we were told at council that the CARET report was not done last year because of COVID.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I don't
Thank
remember.
you, Neville. And I can't quite remember if it wasn't done because of COVID or they gave us a pass for not completing it because of COVID. So maybe we could clarify that.
Or was
My
it that
recollection
the
is that
whole
they gave
report,
everyone a pass, but maybe someone else knows better.
So go ahead, Rebecca.
that was going to be my question, or is it that the whole CAREP report process was on hold?
That's what my understanding is, or what I remember, but we'll clarify with Pam and find out exactly where we sit and what the expectation will be for 2021. Oh, Greg, go ahead, please.
Yeah, when I looked at the CAREP report a week or two ago, I was excited to see there's many areas where we can update it, I think, not to say, because the things that we're looking at, the things we're interested in, just looking at our A to T there, if we can get a bit of a start on some of those things, I think it'll look like a completely different document. By June, if I heard correctly that we might be looking to update it by June, I would think by June we should be able to have a real good kick at that can.
Yeah, I would agree with that. When I looked over it, I saw there was some areas that we have actually had some movement on, others not so much, but you know, baby steps. So we'll check in with Pam. Let's see what the expectation is for this year, and if we as a committee can kind of relieve some of that on her and fill in those blanks and provide it to her, I think that would probably be welcomed.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any more questions for CAO De Jong?
I have a question. I'm not sure if it's appropriate at this time, but I'm wondering whether in the process of assembling this, it would make any sense to just look at prioritizing some things, the things that are either prioritize along the lines of what is most important to get done, or prioritize according to what can we get off our plates quickly. And so, so that we have a sense of what to move on first or most quickly, and a sense of, what's going to take longer and be more involved, but maybe be more necessary.
Well, and thank you for John. So that's a beautiful segue into unfinished business. So we have a lofty list of goals. We do need to streamline these and we do need to prioritize. So I think that, with the OCP amendment, that sounds like it is going to be presented by staff to us Ruth, would you like to speak on that?
Oh, sorry, if it's okay, I just want to, on John, what John said about prioritizing, and since we have the mayor here and Neville and Councillor Abbott, as far as the revenue to the village potential, and say it is only a few $1,000s, but it is money that, you know, is sitting there on the table, really. I'm just curious as to what in the past, I think the village has only filed 2 reports in the past, but, you know, the other piece that would be useful to see is really, well, what was received? And if we were to maximize the return in June, based on what Greg assumes that we might be able to do, the other piece of that is where would staff see prioritizing putting that money back in towards reducing, or again, further achieving carbon neutrality in the village. So I was just curious as to what staff and council might have discussed in the past as being kind of where you see the priorities being, to, if it's double glazing the windows or whatever it is in the village that would continue to improve our energy efficiency or fuel reduction or whatever. I'm just curious while you're there.
Well, I know we did the windows in the office last year or the year before. Yeah, I'm not sure in terms of what items would score us best in the report, so that we maximize whatever the refund dollars or rebate dollars are for greenhouse gas funding. But I think that really, in terms of the committee looking at these things, I think probably as a group, you would want to identify what things might be low-hanging fruit, easier to accomplish, bang a few things off, add to the list, identify which ones are going to take more resources and time to do, or research to figure out if there's a way to advance along a certain path. So I think that's sort of the approach that I would suggest, is sort of go through that process of looking at all the different categories and items that are out there. And, you know, you'll have a baseline once I provide you that report, and then an opportunity, I think, to try and prioritize what you think you can move on quickest. And, you know, along with, I think probably you would likely agree with this statement, is that the educational component ought to be front and center with whatever path or whatever priorities are chosen in terms of the way to go forward. You want to be pushing the educational component, I think, regardless of what other paths are chosen. That'd be my thought anyways.
I can see that, yeah, education would be a concurrent with any initiative that we're doing, and we'll utilize the VU and whatever other platforms the village does adopt in the near future. Thanks for that suggestion, Peter. Clara, would you? Muted. You're muted.
Hi, yeah, sorry. I had a kind of a question just to off of what Ruth was asking, is are we going to have if now that we've declared a climate emergency, is there going to be funding for climate upgrades that are the value is the GHG reduction as opposed to a rate of return? For example, if we switched the works yard to renewable diesel, it's going to cost fractionally more than non-conventional diesel, but it's going to reduce the emissions of the village by, I think it's 70%. So would that be, do we have to do this one at a time, or is there a budget going to be allotted for these kind of things where we can decide where the money is where we will get the greatest GHG reduction per dollar spent? How do we approach, how do you want us to present it, I guess, is the question.
So Peter can clarify this, but my understanding would be that the recommendation would come from the committee to council, and then it would come to a vote at the council table. And if it is favorable, then the direction would go to staff in order to fulfill that. So I would say that that's something that we need to put together, present, and see where it goes from there. And if as
You there, Jamie? We lost your voice, Jamie.
If I may continue on behalf of Madam Chair, for the sake of argument, round numbers, we're in April, May now. The budget's going to be signed off the first week of May. I think, Clara, relative to your point about changing automotive features or other stuff, this can be done probably with implementation, early discussion in the fall. If there's a case for it to come, then bring it on. I think council is prepared to look at all climate action relative items, as long as there's a business plan behind it and it meshes with what we're trying to do. Example being, if we've got a 2-year lease, I don't know what the mechanics are with one of our vehicles, and we'll swap it out when the time comes, or can we do it sooner? So I think, again, just as I said, the community's thirsty for this. I believe our council is too.
I'm back. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay, apologies for that. I am looking into better Wi-Fi, just so you know. Hopefully we'll get that going on sooner than later. Thank you for stepping in there, Ron. Was there anything, I got the gist of what you were saying.
Are you fine with that, Clara? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, that makes sense. I just wondered if there was already a kind of pre-approved climate upgrade, or is it just part of general infrastructure and then we just have to kind of go one by one?
It's how your committee through the chair wants to come to council. And if you want to stockpile them, that's fine. If you want to bring it, by virtue of her bringing her and Councillor Barmere bringing your minutes to the meetings, I mean, we're up to the minute with monthly with where you are, and with a highlight from Madam Chair or Mr. Vice Chair that, you know, this is on the radar, this is going to come to our next financial discussion. I mean, all respect to the CFO and to the CAO, I mean, the budget's going to be set in 3 weeks. That doesn't mean there's flexibility within that, of course. And so there's always ways around things if it's really important, if it's a really big hit, and it really happens fast. So back to the committee and back to Madam Chair and Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you.
John, go ahead.
Yeah, if I don't know whether it's the case, but if there is federal funding or provincial funding available for some of these programs, is that potential included in the budgetary process? And does the budgetary process take note of deadlines for applications for those funds?
Excellent question. I would say that currently there was, outside of the EV charging grant, staff would not have been pursuing any other sort of, you know, climate related grants, because there would have been no direction for them to do so. I don't see where, if we do have a project that we're interested in and we are available, I mean, the more work that we can, or that we can take on, the more information we can provide to staff, then they can hit the ground running, as opposed to putting them in a exploratory kind of position. So by all means, if there was a grant you were aware of for a project, I think we would ask staff to pursue that, and then that would get built into the next budget. Or Ron or Peter, do you want to clarify that, if that is correct?
Yeah, I mean, there's usually a time lag between application and notification as to whether you're successful or not. So lately, the time lag has been growing. So it really depends on when we would get word as to whether or not we were the lucky recipients of a grant application. In the interim, though, in terms of budgeting, when we do apply for grants, we include the money in the budget as if we were going to receive it. And then likewise, there's a matching expense item showing it being spent on account of that particular initiative. So it would be included in a budget if that's something that we were pursuing, whether or not we'd received it. And then if we did receive it, then we'd go forward. And if we didn't, then it would just be a budgeted item that was an in and out that didn't happen. Or unless, council at the next opportunity can then decide whether or not they want to allocate other resources other than grant funding to accomplish the initiative.
Thank you, Peter. Anybody else have questions on that?
I do. I believe that the village has access to a grant, like a database of grants that are out there. Do you know about that? Does the village currently look on those grant database, or am I imagining things?
We sort of stay attuned to grant announcements, and there are certain staff members who check federal websites, provincial websites from time to time. When we see something come up that's of interest, that may be something that aligns with council's strategic priorities, then we'll take note and look into it further. But I'm not sure what you mean by a grant database, if it's a sort of a central clearinghouse for all grants that maybe, because there's federal, provincial, there's hydro, there's FCM, there's UBCM. We have applied for all of those different avenues, but and then there's some private foundation type grants and other organizations, NGOs that fund things but that's getting more into the weeds in terms of going and having a dedicated grant person who goes and looks for grant funding. And municipalities, lots of municipalities and regional districts have staff that have that in their job title or description, and so they're more spending more time doing those kinds of things, looking for grants. But we're not quite that far into the weeds.
Can I ask, Peter, would it be a reasonable ask if we identify, say, our top 5 priorities through 2021 into 2022 and ask staff to look into possible grants for those that we have made recommendations to council for and that council has passed?
Well, I mean, there's, one of the things that the committee could do is to look into and research if there's grants out there that are aligning with the things that are within your terms of reference and the scope of initiatives that you want to explore doing. Then by all means, search far and wide, and if you can find stuff to apply for, then bring it forward. That would be my suggestion.
Okay, thank you. And as somebody who's never searched for a grant, I would imagine there is some members of the committee that might have a little bit more expertise in that area. Can I assume that would be correct? Nod of heads? Ish.
If we nod, that means we're going to do it. Whoever nods first.
So then I guess perhaps a crash course with staff that I would be happy to ask, whoever it is to just kind of direct me. I'm aware of, grants through FCM. I know Councillor Barmeyer has a lot more to offer in this part of it than I do and perhaps other of the members do. So I think he'll be a resource. Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, well, you know, by now I'm interested in this natural asset inventory and risk assessment and management
Yes.
part of this. So I'll look into grants that I think are related to that.
Okay. And that was actually going to be my next sort of suggestion, if to narrow down this list. I know when we had our first unofficial meeting, we sort of all spoke with, you know, what we seem to be more passionate about, or it came through that way just by our conversation. So maybe after we leave here tonight, so we don't spend too much time debating the pecking order in which we personally feel these should fall, if we could send out just a note to the group about your number 1 or 2 picks that you are most interested in pursuing. And then we can look at putting resources into each of those. And even if that becomes essentially a subcommittee that we are personally engaging. Greg, I'm on board with wanting to know more about this natural asset inventory. That's really interesting to me. So if you take me under your wing and give me some knowledge. For me, my personal passion is the waste transfer station, local transfer station. I'm also wondering if I can we have to talk to Public Works, but will some of the funding for that, could that qualify under the COVID relief that we've been given, considering a year ago we were asked not to go to a transfer station. So people were just letting things pile up. I'm not sure where the direction of the health authority is going to be going. There's whispers of closing provincial borders if things don't start to change. So we are in the weeds when it comes to that. If anybody wanted to just share, you know, what their kind of priority would be. Clara, go ahead.
So I'm working on renewable diesel for the village, and I've already talked to the works department, and I've had conversations with Chevron, and I'm meeting with Suncor on Monday. So I already know how much diesel we burn, and you know where it is and how we use it. And so once I get everything together, the only help I would really need from staff is whether we're locked into the fuel delivery contract we already have, or if we're able to change that. I know there's no grants, but I could also look into the clean energy for food trucks and for events. And I would just again need to know if we have an in-house or in-village, I guess, electrician, or if we need to, you know, how far we need to go outside for those kind of consultants. But I definitely want to just start burning cleaner, or stop burning diesel, actually.
Yeah, and thank you for that. That's excellent, all the information you provided. So Clara's she's in the diesel. Ruth? You're muted, Ruth.
Sorry, Rebecca had her hand up. But
Oh, sorry, Rebecca, you're off my screen there. Please go ahead.
Okay, no worries. It was just to ask, it's not to express any interest on the, not any disinterest either, but not to list my order of preference. What I was going to ask is that as we nominate our topics of interest, whether we can indicate whether it has an indirect or direct impact on greenhouse gas emissions and reductions, and what we think those are, so that there's actually some context to this preferred list.
Excellent suggestion, Rebecca. Thank you very much. Anybody else have something they'd like to offer at this moment?
Can I just ask for Rebecca to say that again for the minutes? So with that,
Yeah,
when
sure.
we state our priorities, we say
we indicate whether we think it has an indirect or direct impact on our greenhouse gas emission reductions, on the assumption that that's our overall goal.
Yeah.
And if we can articulate it, a bit of an explanation why.
Okay.
If you know, if members can, or to the extent they can.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm interested in digging more into the climate action toolkit. So I can put my name beside that to see what tools, potential grants, ideas that are applicable to these other action items could be shared. As well as I said, if we're looking at, once we have the report back from the CAO on how we've done on our current OCP amendment, commitment to GHGs, I can share the document. I can put in the Google Drive now, actually, what other communities have done in terms of targeting their renewed targets and the actions they're taking. So I
Excellent.
put beside those two.
And by no means is this an invitation for everybody to spearhead their own subcommittee. If there's something you want to jump on board with somebody else that you're interested in. John, go ahead.
Yeah, if I'm sort of looking at the things, a very long time ago now, I was looking to bring a solar expert in about putting solar panels on the municipal buildings, to see what the costs would be, to give an estimate, and to determine what the long-term savings would be. I hadn't done that. That was partly a measure because my expert flaked out, but also because of COVID issues in terms of coming to the village and assessing the various sites. I would love to finish, to actually make some progress on that. So I would like to go forward with that one. And then my other area of high interest that doesn't reduce, that I don't think reduces our carbon emissions at all, but is a mitigation issue in terms of climate change mitigation, is our water supply. I am deeply, deeply concerned about water shortages and preservation of our watershed for future, both for making sure that we have enough water and for wildfire prevention within our watershed. So I've done, practically, I've done some really dumb research. Well, I don't know if it's dumb, but I've done research on very out of the box solutions, and there are probably much more within the box solutions that make more sense, but I'd like to be involved with that.
Well, and again, another beautiful segue, John, into new business. I don't think we had that on our list of unfinished business that I can see about watershed preservation, water security, and fire prevention. So
well, that's definitely in the bailiwick that I consider natural asset in inventory, because
okay,
it's way beyond inventory. So I'd be delighted to work with John or dovetail with John when it comes to the watershed protection. The hazard assessment, and next time we get together, I guess we're going to say a few words, but the hazard assessment that's been done for the village points out that our watershed and our shoreline are at high risk. And I'll say this again next week, but climate change increases the risk to these natural assets tremendously. So step 2 will be to look at not only prioritize the watershed and the shoreline among the natural assets, but then to review the risk assessment, make a plan for an action plan and an implementation plan to focus on the protection and the protection of our natural assets, including the shoreline and the watershed, John.
excellent. So may I make a suggestion at this point here, because I am conscious of our 1 hour that we were hoping for, and we did have a little bit of a hiccup earlier. So I don't want to just take advantage of that time of everybody's. If we have identified personal sort of interests. Perhaps we can present on those at our next meeting and see where everybody's at. In the meantime, if there is somebody that there is another topic that they strike a chord with, we can send emails to everybody, and then we'll work on getting an agenda together for our next meeting. So that would go to the, oh, go ahead, Ruth.
Well, I was just going to offer that I can also in the Google Drive set up because I love spreadsheets, list, the list, and then who's, put their name beside that. And then we could maybe have these columns that have been suggested, like that we would need to tick off. So then we can kind of take that spreadsheet and then at the next meeting, resort it in order priority or whatever. So I will offer to do that.
Thank you, Ruth. That would be amazing and very helpful. And so that being said, would we like to discuss when a next meeting date would work for everybody? So the next regular council meeting is that correct? It's not until the 25th of May?
No, May 4th.
May 4th. And then the 25th is when we're getting the report back from staff on. Okay, so I'll throw it out there. Do we want to meet in 2 weeks' time? Do we want to meet 3 weeks' time?
I mean,
Madam, might I suggest that you're going to be putting a lot of horsepower to your village update stuff? 2 weeks might be a little soon.
Good point. Thank you, Mayor McLaughlin. Ruth, go ahead.
Well, I would suggest May 27th or after we get the report, and then in the meantime, we've each got homework to do and we can still make some progress on research.
I think that's fair and reasonable, and we can, email with each other the whole way through. Anybody else have any? Clara?
Yeah. I think we also need to backtrack to council meetings because there are timelines involved with suggestions and all that sort of stuff. Like, didn't we have to rush to get the climate emergency kind of done? So I'm wondering if we know what do we need to meet 3 weeks before a council meeting so that we have 1 week to, if we have a suggestion, we have 1 week to put it all together to all agree to it, and then it's out there for 2 weeks before it can be taken to council. Like, I'm just not sure how that works, but I think we need to make sure that we're not setting a meeting 2 days after a council meeting and then we won't get an answer for another 6 weeks, because I think we're all quite impatient and we really want to make sure that we're using the time properly to kind of start knocking these suggestions off at council meetings. Am I understanding the process that way?
Peter, could you clarify exactly how much time we would need to present, say, a recommendation by the Climate Action Task Force to council to make a decision? How soon was it? The Thursday prior to the council meeting?
Well, that's the cutoff for the agenda. So you don't want to be having, if we got a meeting on the 25th, you don't want to be meeting on the 20th because it's going to be too rushed. It should probably be the week before, like May 13th, or, you could, that's if you're sticking with Thursdays. If you, want to do a Tuesday in between council meetings, and you could potentially do the 18th or the 11th. But that way there's a little bit of time to get the minutes in and the recommendations hit the agenda in time. So, 18th would be as late as you could really have a meeting and still, have your minutes and recommendations brought forward to the meeting a week later.
So okay. So can I ask Clara, is this specifically in regards to your work on the diesel?
No.
This is just in general?
This is just in general, like if we want to, if we need to have council approve us to direct staff to put together a report that we can review,
Yeah.
then we want to stay on the same.
So I would
Uh,
say, sorry to, I hear what you're saying, and it sounds like we should really plan on meeting 1 week before council meetings. In this case, Ruth, I think your suggestion for our next meeting of the 27th is probably good. In the case that then we will have a baseline of discussion from the staff reports that we'll receive for the 27th. And then we can look at scheduling that week before or 10 days before, and when we do have recommendations to bring to council. Does that make sense, Ruth?
Well, I guess I heard, so I'm understanding there's actually a council meeting on the May 25th as well. So there's May 4th and then May 25th.
Yes,
Yeah.
and May 25th is when we are expecting the report back from staff in regards to the climate action change and the emergency that was declared. Correct, Peter? That's when we'll sort of have our baseline of what we've done, what we haven't done, what we wanted to do, what we didn't do.
Mhm.
Well, personally, I don't mind meeting on the 18th if it's just for an hour like this, just to regroup, and then there may be something for the meeting of the 25th that we've come up with in time.
Okay.
How does everyone
Does
feel
the
about-
18th sound okay with everybody else? Any objections?
I'm clear.
That's a month from now.
I'm kind of with Greg. Like, I think we need to keep,
So what
I
about
think we
the
can
what
keep
about
on
the
it.
15th? Is anybody superstitious?
Which one?
I don't know, the 11th, 12th, 13th.
13th? Okay.
I'm happy for whatever the majority wants. 13th is fine with me. I feel it's lucky 13, so.
Oh. Good.
Would everybody be happy if we met on the 13th for an hour?
Sure.
Fine.
Rebecca? John?
You're on mute.
Yeah, I guess I'm okay with the 13th. Should work. Quick question for Ruth. Are you going to do a cut and paste document on the climate emergency announcement? So it will be you who will be taking the lead on that? After you volunteered me, you volunteered yourself.
Yeah, I'm just going to do a really quick cut and paste from what I can find.
Okay.
Is
good.
everybody able to access the Google Drive? Is there anyone?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, great.
okay.
Put it
What's
in-
that?
All right, well, give us all permission to edit.
Yep.
When you do it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And unfortunately, it looks like we've lost Rebecca.
He signed off.
She signed off?
Yep.
Okay, fair enough. We will let her know the next meeting will be at May 13th, 7 p.m. Still the preferable start time for everybody?
Yes.
Yep.
What happened to CD and E in our unfinished business? Did we do that and I missed it or what?
We didn't get as far. We got from C, we touched on D, and we didn't get as far as E.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So that would be something to, the survey, was it who, please, help me out here. Somebody was more kind of willing to look at putting a survey together or beginning a survey, or am I thinking of something else, another committee?
I think the survey has to come, I think that's where the report from council of where we're actually at is really important in the survey, because I think the survey should also say, Lions Bay has
This,
organic,
and that.
for example, or would you be more interested in, other communities have more, would you be interested in that? So I think we need to kind of know where that's part of the whole measuring thing. We need to know where we're at so we can know where we're moving towards. And then the survey is going to help prioritize that, that interest from the rest of the residents?
So that would be something to address after the 25th, and that could be something that we may want to ask council for some money to put towards to bring in an expert.
I think Neville has his hand up. Jamie?
Oh, sorry, Neville, go ahead, please. We welcome the public participation at the end of the meeting here.
I just thought the meeting was going to end before I got a chance. So it's the end of the meeting, and I just got a couple of comments.
Please.
So the CARE report grant is an unconditional grant that you receive for signing the BC Climate Action Charter. I'm not sure what it is. My memory is, for us, it was single digit thousands, and Peter will go get the right number. It wasn't hundreds and it wasn't tens of. That's just from memory. It was all reports, and the only thing you have to do is sign the charter and submit a report. You don't have to achieve anything in the report. And if you go look at the 2018 report, you will find Lions Bay in the lowest category of achievement. So that's what that was about. I do like this, the way this committee was going with short meetings, meeting more frequently and taking homework away. I think I might want to try adopt that on some of our other meetings. And I just say thanks to everyone for putting their hands up and taking on some work. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Neville. All right, so before we call the meeting to end.
Sorry, Jen, I did mean to say one other thing. And to Ruth's question, I think Peter didn't quite answer clearly. I'm relatively very confident that our COVID grant goes into general revenues. It's not tagged to any particular initiative. It just goes into general revenues. But I think I'm assuming where you were heading with that question is that's probably something that this committee should ask as a very minimum. The money that comes, the grant that comes from the CAREP report goes into some sort of initiatives that meet those goals and don't go to general revenues.
Yeah, I'll check with Pam.
Thank you, Neville. Yes, thank you, Peter, for clarifying. That would be great. So before we finish off, any last thoughts anybody would like to share?
Yeah, I don't think we finished with C and D. I mean, I know we chatted a little bit about it, but I see C, review and update. Is that what we were going to do?
So we're not, I would say we're still, I think all of these are still on the unfinished business from the OCP. That's going to give us more information when we get that report back from staff on the 25th. We can't really sink our teeth into that until we have that baseline. Perfect. And I think from my perspective, the CAREP report just seems to be ongoing. So as we are able to kind of fill in those blanks, we'll find out. So Neville did confirm that the CAREP report was waived for 2020 because of COVID. So we will confirm where we're at for 2021. Okay. And then we can kind of get in on it at that point. Does that sound fair to you, Greg?
Perfect.
Excellent. Anybody else? Comments, questions, concerns?
Just a quick comment on the grant research. I did a quick search and apparently there is a one-stop shop for Canadian grants and it's grants.gov.
Wow.
So that'll is a good starting point anyways. Or there's dummies.com, how to find grants for dummies type thing. So hopefully we'll be able to find something.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Christina. On that note, that's a one to end on. So our wish is our grants command. At that, I will make a motion to end the meeting. Can I get a second?
I second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Yep.
Good night.
Good night.
All right. Take care, everybody. Thank you for coming. Sorry about the beginning. We'll get this sorted out.
Okay.
Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you,
Bye.
Peter.
Thanks
Thank
a
you,
lot.
Ron. Thank you, Neville.